Hey guys, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from wherever you're watching this. Welcome to Tech Talk with Jay. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Zara Carvanel, and I will be moderating today's discussion. So, here at Tech Talks with Jay, finance isn't the only thing that is going to be borderless because we are too. In fact, this series is here to serve you with tech know how from tech leaders and techpreneurs from all over the world. And of course, to cruise with you on this adventure, let me introduce the man of the hour, entrepreneur, speaker, and chief finance officer of Machnet. Ladies and gents, help me welcome Mr. Jay Dahal.
Hey there.
Jay.
How's it going?
All good. I'm excited as always for this upcoming episode. So today is actually entitled Where We're Headed. And I know we've had a bunch of conversations of where tech is right now. And today we're going to find out what is coming next for the tech world, and a lot of insights that I am very excited to know about. I'm sure you have a lot under your sleeve too, especially with AI and ML getting more and more integrated into the tech scene. It's interesting to see what's next. Anything particular you're eyeing on?
No, that's awesome. Thank you. I think it's really a burning sensation that's going on in Silicon Valley, and then everybody's talking about what's next for the tech world, and then the AI and things like that. To be honest, if you ask me, I think there's a lot of hot fuzz going on this year. So if you ask me, probably mid next year, I think this is when a lot of kind of a material thing probably going to pop out. So a lot of companies are testing and trying to build something in AI space. So we'll have to see how those things is going to kind of materialize and really solve the real world problem versus the hype. Because if you think about how crypto came in, like it's with the big wave and then it crashed, and then now we're still kind of cruising there. So just wait and watch and trying to see who is building what and trying to solve a real problem with an AI. So so it'll probably take another couple quarters to kind of see what this is going to evolve. But very much looking forward for the today's so with the next year venture advisor. So excited.
You already hyped it up, but no, especially post pandemic where everyone's already tuned in and have been integrated into the tech scene. It's not just for tech people. Very, very excited. Okay, fine, let's go. Without further ado, let's bring in our special guests for today, beginning with our first special guest. He is a former Philippine Volcano rugby player. He is a private equity expert and the co-founder of Next Era Venture Advisors. Everyone, please welcome Mr. Jason Mann. Hey, Jason.
Hey, Z, AJ. Thank you for the warm welcome. Very happy to be here.
We are so excited, and I know there's a bunch that we want to talk about, but before we get to that, let's introduce our next guest. So our next guest is a health and sports scientist. He is an ex-NFL performance therapist and the chairman for Players Only Network, and also the co-founder of Next Era Venture Advisors. Everyone, please welcome Mr. Tommy Zheng.
Hey, Tommy.
Hey, Jay.
Hey, how's it going?
Welcome to Tech Talks with Jay. Thank you so much for being here. How are you guys doing?
Great. Thank you for having us.
We're doing good. We're doing good. Long day, but we're doing good.
Okay. We here at Tech Talks with Jay, we're always excited to meet and chat with like-minded people on the show. So again, thank you so much. And I know that, both of you are co-founders of Next Era Venture Advisors. So why don't we start by getting to know a little more about Next Era better, what it is, what the big vision is, just so that everyone in the audience can be looped in.
Sure. Jay, you don't mind if I start off?
Go for it, man.
Cool. So just on a high level, Net Zero Venture Advisors is basically growth strategies, particularly for startups. We help with market validation, market entry, as well as growth financing. So the three verticals or pillars that a lot of the startup community I found is missing, if that makes sense. I personally represent the sports and the health side of things with my educational and professional background. Jason can represent a lot of the equity and financial aspect of it. Jay, you want to hop in?
Yeah. So what we've seen in the startup ecosystem, and the reason we started NEVA was because there's a lot of founders out there that have these great ideas, but they're lacking the foundational knowledge to actually take it to market, to either present it to investors in a way that makes them excited about the project, as well as knowing exactly what their exit strategy is. Where we come in is we fill those gaps. And with Tommy and his connections with the professional sports world and my experience with equity, we found a perfect blend together to create a business and a company that we're both very proud of.
Okay. So, Jay, do you have any questions or anything you want to say on that?
No, I think this is great. I think I am a first-time founder, so thank you guys for starting something that is going to help, first-time founder who have no clue what the heck is going on while building a company. So I think people like yourself and the NEVA is definitely going to probably make a lot of dent in the startup community, because I remember, when it comes to building a company, it's really you get into this daily grind of kind of building and doing things, and you kind of forget a lot of important things that happen. So, for example, formation, capital management, and in investors reporting, and then fundraising, and then how to really exit, like this mentioned. Kind of need to think about those kind of stuff, and having someone really helping on those along the line while building a product, or get to that product market fit. I think those are sort of the crucial steps that every founder should know, because I'm on my fourth and probably going to fifth years of my building this payment ecosystem. I wish I would have started with somebody like you guys back in the day, so I knew I didn't make a lot of mistakes along the way. Kind of have to learn that. So I'm just glad that a lot of advisors coming in and helping. So thank you for doing that. Thank you from the founder's perspective. I think this is amazing. I'd love to hear more about maybe kind of double clicking on what you guys do in detail in a little bit later. But yeah, I'm looking forward to hear more later.
Yeah, actually, I mean, from what do you do? Is there a certain industry that you guys like building around or prefer building around?
I would say we're mostly agnostic in terms of industry and vertical, but of course, coming from the sports background, I personally prefer the sports and the health tech sector just because I feel like I can add the most value. But I think the network we've built, particularly, there's really no industry that we can't say we can't help.
And I want to agree a little bit more on that. I mean, of course, the sporting side of it in our background, it's really piques our interest. But another thing is we really like innovation. The tech space has always been about pushing things forward and innovating things from, past circumstances. And with the current landscape, especially with the rise in AI, there's just a lot of that happening more than ever, I feel like. And when Tommy and I look into different companies we would like to be a part of or to help out, innovation is a big one. Like, what are they doing that's going to drive things forward?
I mean, speaking of innovation driving things forward, are there trends that you are currently seeing? This is for the three of you, in the tech industry. If you have, how did you see those to be applicable in, whichever company you saw them at?
Yeah, I mean, I can probably start here. I think there are a lot of trends going on, but again, what I learned in the last 3 years is about what's trending is not always what's sexy all the time, right? You gotta solve the real world problem. It does not have to be most advanced thing you should do, and definitely people should be investing on those kind of stuff. I don't know if you guys heard about this whole potential breakthrough on room temperature semiconductor developed by some South Korean the other day, and then it came out that is going to probably, if it is a true thing, then it is probably going to kind of change the dynamics of how the battery get charged, and then how computer is going to function, and how quantum computing and things like that is going to kind of accelerate it. So those are pretty cool, and it sounds like amazing things. But there are a lot of other things that are very simple too, right? How money moves. how can we solve a lot of stuff that is still a pain point on healthcare system, right? Like you mentioned, we have this AI buzz in the last few months when OpenAI kind of kicked up there in a DALL-E 2 and then ChatGPT and things like that. How can we incorporate those kind of stuff in our existing ecosystem and solve real problem? I think we talked about this a couple parts ago, G, about can I use AI to in our at Machnet, can we use it to solve and give a better user experience to our customers? I think that's already winning, because that helps our client to better to get a better experience on sending money or processing money and saving costs. Can we lower the fraud and chargeback and things like that? So I think definitely biotech is something that is interesting for me to kind of keep looking. Healthcare sector, education sector, and AI, and all of these things are pretty interesting for us, because those are kind of like the foundations of things that needed to be fixed, problem to be solved for us to to develop and to be better at picking some technology that's out there. So love to hear what Jason and Tom has to say.
I like that biotech aspect, and I would second that. Particularly, there's been a lot of advancement in biotech in terms of the genomics, medical devices, health monitoring, as well as disease management. A good example is we see now a plethora of different companies that use AI to analyze your gut health based on the RNA representation of it, and that wasn't something that was around 3 years ago, right? So advancement in kind of like the machine learning aspect of it as well has a significant impact on the health monitoring overall. It lowers the cost of the companies trying to develop this for their patientele, and at the same time, as Jay mentioned, it gives them a better user experience.
Yeah.
I mean, on that, sorry, Jason, before you go on, it's also very interesting to see how biotech works with certain brands. Like, for example, here, the last 3 months, I think Steve and I did a DNA test, which was in still low key at this point, partnership with a watch brand. So you do your DNA test and it tells you all the things that you might be prone to, all the workouts that might be best for you, how your body is built, basically a very, very, very comprehensive version of the of that scale that you step on, and your visceral fats, your muscle levels, et cetera, et cetera. And then it also tells you the percentage of you getting sick of a certain disease far in the future. And imagine that plus your smartwatch. It then tells you, okay, you haven't clocked in your, let's say, 45-minute high intensity workout yet. Your muscles aren't getting the pump that it needs. So it's pretty interesting from an athlete's POV. I think this is something that, Jason, I'm sure you have insight on as well, especially that you've seen how sports and athletes are here in the Philippines, but also there in the US.
Yeah, definitely. I think, kind of sorry to loop back to what Jay had said earlier about the AI and tech space and how there are things that are always trendy, but not necessarily valuable. I think we saw that recently with the whole crypto occurrence. It sounds like a great idea, but what was the real value behind that innovation? And I think with the new upcoming trend with AI, and looking back to the biotech aspect of it, is what is the actual benefit of what's being created here? I think when you look into these companies and when you look at the tech space in general, you want to see the actual application, because otherwise, you could run into problems like we saw recently with the crypto boom.
That's right. I think what G, you mentioned about healthcare data, I think it's so important, because we know so much, not so much, I guess, so little about us in general, and so little about the nature, right? And I think we still need to explore so much about our health, our genome, so that we can be productive, we can do better things, so that we can perform better. You mentioned about now, exactly what exercise you need to do, because based on your genetic and based on DNA and based on your hygiene and things like what you need to eat, better your body, then you can function better, you can do better things, right? I think those are, you would think that is not like esoteric, amazing things, but at the same time, I think those little things add so much value in your life for you to perform better. So I think that's super critical. So again, I think the lesson learned for me personally for the last couple of years is don't go with the hype, learn, kind of, pause, and then kind of really learn about what's the real value, like Jason mentioned, that things bring into your life and people's life, and kind of go for it. I think that's where I think it's I'll probably double down on my acquiring a lot of knowledge around those things.
And I feel like those are also the core values of tech in general, like why it's being built in the first place. And another interesting thing to see is always how these industries or verticals are starting to, work together, and that the tech world is more intertwined than we think. On a very top level, we know, for example, just putting together sports and fintech, right? We know that fintech companies rely on sports and health data to make better lending decisions, especially when it comes to athletes, and assessing their risk of injuries and even a timeline of their projected careers, right? If you are on that professional level. And on the sports tech side, we also know that they rely on the fintech companies to make their products, their services, or even their events more accessible to its fans, to its viewers, to its athletes. So, in light of all of this happening, can you guys think of areas that are ripe for synergy between these two? It's a quick little challenge, but yeah, between these two industries, so fintech and sports tech, how do you think these two might work together? Is there a point of friction that can be solved by the other? Is that a thing?
That's a really good question, actually. So let me know if I'm answering this incorrectly. But one good example that I know is already currently being built. It's through DraftKings. Essentially, it uses AI and biometric monitoring, particularly with joint movements, to get more detailed variables on specific actions, so that now you have more things to bet on.
Ah,
So
okay.
yeah, for example, I know a company currently in progress of building it right now. If you go to a boxing match, you can
Mhm.
now bet on what the highest velocity of a punch thrown is. And then DraftKings now can go over or under XYZ.
Interesting.
Okay, that's so interesting.
I mean, I think maybe Jason has something.
Oh, no, you go ahead.
No, I think there was. I mean, we talked about this in the past with a lot of, because we tried to do synergy between fintech, because this is what I do and live every day, versus kind of sport tech, and kind of how do you merge together. I think how can we bring in the finance aspect of it, because there are a lot of things that we can already do to kind of 10x the sports, the industry. But how do you bring in finance to help with the either the organizing in general, or maybe like sports enthusiasts in general, or maybe the audience who follow sports, and then how can you bring finance, something like building a digital wallet or gift card system within the ecosystem, and then giving them a reward for watching some game, building a game around it, and incentivizing people to watch more games and things like that. I mean, that's where, and Zip, correct me if this is the direction you're going towards, but yeah, I think it also makes sense, right? You see the stat and then how you bet on it and then
Yeah.
make money, in one way or the other. Again, sorry, you're talking to the finance guy, but this is what I see all day long.
It's true. At the end of the day, it's really all about what you can monetize on, right? Either as a consumer or a provider. It's always
Yeah.
finding more areas and more variables that you can essentially make something out of. And I think that's the goal of gross
Yeah.
maturity of the development here.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's true. I wanted to rewind. You mentioned about health earlier, if you don't mind, Z, because there is something that I think the critical thing that are getting built in this virtual world. There's something called, I'm not endorsing this, but at least you know talking about how our health is getting better every day because of the tech. There's this company called I think it's like an Inside Age or InsideTracker.com, where
Oh,
it actually takes your I think it's called like your age, like inner age. So you are
Yeah.
like, I'm like 34 years old, but what's your actual truly inner age based on your, they will draw blood and then your glucose level, and they're like holistic way of they're checking all of this stuff. And then the goal is to be like younger than what you are, right? Based on your
Yeah.
health and diet. So what I'm trying to say earlier was, I forgot this example. What I wanted to say is because, these are the things that is really innovating in terms of health and diet, and makes our human life better. So that's also something. It's trending, and I think we should be keeping an eye on the health tech side as well, where I think these guys are investing.
I want to back that point up, Jay, too. I do think there's a huge movement going on, particularly in the, I guess it would be health analytics and monitoring space.
Yeah.
And this is going to be a little plug on my other business. So I'm also the founder of Adapt Health and Performance, and one of the core offerings are a partnership with a company like Biome, for example. We give you all of the necessary tools to do all of your genetic, your gut health testing, your oral health testing, to find the biomarkers that essentially could be problematic later on in the future, right?
Yeah.
So it's similar to what you just mentioned with Inside Tracker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you use it?
What's up?
Do you use it? Or have you used it?
Inside Tracker? No. I've actually had a meeting with them, but I actually went through Biome instead. So they focus more on the gut biome aspect as opposed to blood biomarker.
Okay, cool.
And Tommy, was this related to, remember you were telling me about that company you're working with in the past, that mouth guard company that was helping the athletes to determine their really
great. So I do have a couple of projects in the fire. So as Jason mentioned, one of the companies I'm working with is basically Biosensory 2.0. It uses fluid analysis as opposed to skin activity like you would in a Whoop band to get higher accuracy of data, as well as it can measure things like your hormonal levels, cortisol, for example, or blood glucose level. So it's added different variables so you get a better scope of what your health looks like.
Yeah, that's awesome. Amazing.
That's so interesting. Yeah, I mean, to wrap everything together, I guess, especially when in finance or even in banking, I know that they do look into the health of the person that they're talking to. This is a lot of insight, and I feel like data has never been richer than it is currently. So that is a great innovation for the world, for everyone. And while it is on top of everyone's lists, right? So when you look at a company, you always think, okay, what are you doing differently? How is innovation looking like for this company? But alongside that, we also know there's risk and compliance, management, all of that. So what are the current challenges that you might say tech startups have to face, especially with all the innovation coming up, and how can founders overcome them? Jay, okay.
Yeah.
Tom, you want to start? Sorry,
Okay,
you raised your hand.
Sure, Tom. Tom, go for it.
Oh, I didn't raise my hand.
Oh, okay. Back to you, Jay.
Jay, please go for it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, see, here's the thing about building a startup, I mean, I think you guys probably already know this already, but it's not about the hype. It's not about the trend. It's about, the challenges that we're facing to solve a core customer problem. And then, we go back to the drawing room and see what problems our clients have, and then try to solve one problem for a client and see if the same problem exists in other customers. Because, we've been in the industry long enough that we have a handful of clients that, they come out with the same challenges. And can we solve it? Can we solve it the way we used to solve versus with the current trends in technology? Can we use any of those to solve in a much faster way, much better way, and that we can innovate with the current tech and technology, right? I think the LLM models, and then, I'll just give you simple examples whereby the customer service has never been easier now with the LLM model, because you can build your own now, right? With all the database that we can hook up, and you can train your model using and building your own LLM that helps. Now our customer does not have to ask a lot of questions. So for example, we have an API doc where, our clients is going to go and read and understand, and if they have any questions, they can ask. Now the chat bot is going to give you a lot more answer than they have to wait for my customer service agent to wake up and answer the question, so that we don't have to do that anymore. Is there challenges to build that? Absolutely. It's not easy, right? The trend just came out, so building that thing is just like building a monster LLM model from scratch. So you gotta train them. You gotta do like old age way of answering questions and then training them. So that's the challenging part, I think. And then but once you keep training and using the reinforcement learning, then eventually it will get better. So I think there are some challenges that I think every company is going to face. But we're also looking into how can we use the current tech stack to help our clients to do better in terms of productivity, in terms of making more money in general, right? And saving costs, making more money, and then how can we benefit our users, end users and clients. I think that's how we're thinking, and I'm sure that I think everybody at the end of the day, it's all about customers. How can you make a customer happy? How can you give them a better user experience? I think that's what everybody is thinking, and then using this new technology, and then trying to solve the complex problems. I think, yeah.
So when you think of innovation, already brace yourself, because it's going to come with friction in the beginning, especially while you transition into that new system. I've learned it's always so tricky. The first one, at least for user, and for 6 months of trying to move everyone to the new system. But how about you, Jason, Tom? When you guys look into companies, what are the challenges that you usually are able to pinpoint, and how do you propose to the founders to solve them?
I think the user experience, like you mentioned, is always one of the things that is a possible pain point, and often is a pain point, just for the exact reasons you mentioned. It's either you are in the process of moving them into a better UX, or your current UX is too complicated and it's not convenient enough to basically convey a good experience, right? But I would say the other aspect that Jay also mentioned, in terms of having relevant data or enough data, particularly if you're using an AI system in whatever tech space you're starting in, that sometimes is the hardest thing to get, just because you need so much either user data, or you need so many data sets of XYZ. So getting quality data is it's a hard pain point.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, and to add on that, whenever you're adopting something new, like what you guys talked about, it's hard to make that transition because people get used to an old model, and you have to give them a strong enough incentive to make that change. And a big part of that is user experience. Especially in today's world, attention spans are getting shorter. People don't have as much patience. Somehow, with all the technology we have, people have gotten even busier. And if you can't create a product or create a solution that makes it easy to adopt, it's going to be a real challenge to get your consumers to adopt that.
That's right.
Yeah. I think
we need to build a tech so that people get bored. I feel like the problem that we have these days is people can't stand in a room and get bored for 5 minutes, or actually forget it, 1 minute. It's just hard. Their attention span is like very, very tiny, and then kind of TikTok has accelerated that to even like shorter, right? So I think that definitely.
Yeah, and they even showed. I saw on TikTok. They even showed. I think I saw it on Instagram. I saw a research that showed the difference in our brain waves, especially now with the reels and with TikTok, especially before you go to sleep. Instead of you trying to process one piece of information, like when you watch a movie versus 57 different quick reels, right, or quick videos. It's crazy. Our attention span is now less than a goldfish. Is not kidding. Ha ha ha. It's 7 seconds. Yeah.
I think it's about 3 seconds nowadays, 3.2 seconds, something like that.
See, that's
Tom
crazy.
We actually had a conversation about this a while back, and it's crazy. In the past, reading a book, that was like considered a great way to spend your time. And then comic books came out. Comic books are rotting your brain. It's too short, right? It's not like a novel. Then movies came out, and it's like, well, now you're watching a movie, you're not reading a book. That's a lower attention span. Then video games. And then now people can't even sit and watch a movie or a TV show, and it's down to 2 minutes. The bar gets a lot lower as the years go by.
Yeah, actually 90 seconds. That is the maximum content that you can put on a reel or a TikTok.
Yeah.
Crazy. It's I
was going to say, I would be curious if at some point there would be some innovation to basically correct that market trend. You think
that's the $1 trillion idea, Tom?
Business plan. No, but also because
we're all doomed. We're all doomed. I don't think that's gonna be.
I mean, especially in tech, you guys know this. The advice everyone always says is gamify. in whatever you do, gamify, because it engages with the brains of your users, which then makes it entertaining for them, but also brings down their current attention span from 3 seconds to I don't even know. Oh my gosh. But yeah, I mean, for quick question for Tom and Jason, before you take on a client, what are the things that you actually look at? So if, for example, I'm a founder, I've created this product, what are the things that you assess before saying that, okay, this has promise?
My number one thing is actually the founder themselves. I'm big on character, and I think as long as you have someone that can communicate their vision effectively and someone that truly believes in what they're creating, I think they're always going to have a shot. There's also other factors, of course, looking into market fit, current landscape, and how you see it fitting into the future. But for me, I'm a big people person, and the founder and their character is always the biggest thing I look into.
That's right.
I would agree with that 100%. I mean, you can have a really phenomenal product or project, but if you aren't somebody who's executable, if you're not somebody who's malleable, if you're not somebody who actually believes in your product, the chances of success drastically go down, in my opinion.
I mean, Jay, with your investor hat on, what would you also, what do you look at?
Yeah. I think, I invest in really, a lot of pre-seeds and I mean, I don't know if that is even the word. So maybe seed is this company where, they haven't even met the, product market fit. That means, they're still testing. They have, some alpha beta users. But I think it's about really, you're betting on the people. You're not betting on product or anything. There could be a bigger, addressable market, but, is this the founder that you want to bet in? And then is this the founder you think that, can, think about the idea while taking shower, while running around, while, sleeping, whatever, is this person really obsessed about solving, and is the core, at the core that he really truly believes in what he's doing. I think that's important for me whenever I am kind of writing some seed checks. And then I agree. I think, the founders needs to be really relentless in terms of solving the problem that he or she is, or whoever, is committed to do so. So, I think the idea could be great. There are like hundreds and thousands of ideas. We just came up with one idea earlier, right? It's not about an idea. It's about, can it be executable? And is this person the right execution to do this? And is today or now is the time? I think there are a few questions that can really distinguish between a great founder and a good founder, or maybe like a mediocre founder.
Okay, so for everyone watching, it is the founder. And if you are the founder, any tips for them?
I actually do, to touch on that a little bit. So not just looking at the founder and the things they say to you, because, a lot of people are great talkers, doesn't always mean they're great at what they do. But coming from my equity background, and I'm not going to nerd out on this too much, but when you're looking at a cap table and the way the founder has their commission structured, one thing that always comes up is, how are they compensating themselves through the growth of their company? How invested are they in the growth? And in terms of that growth, how are they benefiting from it? And how are they being essentially punished if they don't get the success they're looking for? And with equity, you get a good feel of that. Jay, I'm not sure when you look to invest in a company, if you audit their cap table, but seeing the way they have their ownership structured and seeing how that founder is going to be compensated as that company scales and grows is going to be a strong indicator in their true belief, because their words are going to say a lot, but that cap table is really where they put, so put your money where your mouth is, right?
No, but I think definitely agree. I mean, but like I said earlier, I think I invest in companies that are very early stage where it could be one or two founders, and then they're not really paying themselves much because they don't really have a lot of money. They're right, getting like $20,000-$25,000 check just to test the market. I 100% agree. I think when it comes down to due diligence and really learning about the cap table and then how they're expensing things, how they're compensating, those P&L and balance sheet item and then equity structure definitely make a difference, right? And how they're compensating. Usually, I don't see a performance-based stock plan early days because when the company they started, when there is when the founder is a seed round, there's always a vesting structure, like 4 years vesting, 1 year cliff, and next 3 years of vesting for those years. They gotta earn that. So that kind of give me a little bit of a comfort in the 1 year the founder is going to run away and what's going to happen, So that's always a tricky part. But at the same time, I think if somebody's raising in a $2 million in a 10 post, and if this guy is running $250,000 in compensation, that's a flag, right? That's a flag. And then how much that person own in a company, that can also tell a lot of things. But compensation plan definitely going to trigger a red flag on in early days, because there's a benchmark of how much they pay in a couple of months of getting into the business versus like in a series A, B, or C round.
How about you, Tom?
No, I'm gonna agree with my partner there.
We agree with Jay and Jason.
My girl Jay and Jason.
Yeah, okay. Before we head on to the last question, I just actually remembered one. Where are we in terms of VR? When it comes, do you think there's space for it in fintech? Question mark, Jay. And in sports tech, I know that it is being used here and there, but I do want to know if you have any concrete examples of how virtual reality has been playing on your end. But I'll probably start with Jay. Yeah. So that
Yes,
Tom
yeah. See, I'm no expert on virtual reality, but what I can see is I really love the Apple VR headset, so I might buy it and test it out whenever it comes out in the market. Right? It costs like $3,000. So, is it for everybody? No, absolutely not. So it still has a long way to go, in my opinion, for the mass adoptions, in my opinion. And my kid is growing up, so maybe when he turns like 8, 9, and 10, maybe we'll be able to play some games on in AR VR stuff. Like I know Facebook is like a massive investment on Oculus and things like that.
Yeah.
So I'll wait and see how it evolves, but definitely something to look for, because I was talking with the U.S. University of Silicon Valley professor, is a good friend of mine. They're talking about the immersive technology and then MetaHuman. Sounds interesting, right? But there is tons of things going on in this market. So I'm not well versed, but I'm looking forward to see how this industry evolves.
Yeah. Yeah, especially, I mean, the tech world, like we were talking about, there's so many things going on, and I can't yet imagine, but also I can't wait to see how all of a sudden we're going to be in a virtual reality state, and everyone's doing everything through, I don't know, shades or whatever. Because I think, was it Google that came out, or was it Google X something like that, right? That you do everything through your Seni. So yeah. Interesting.
Oh, I'll give you one example. Sorry to jump in, but
go.
there is this transcribe me, and I was scrolling through Twitter the other day, and I think it's so amazing. The transcribe me company is like wearing a glass, and it will transcribe what other person is saying. So if you think about a deaf person who does not, can't hear, but it can kind of look at the lip, and it can understand what that person is saying, and it will show it in the glass right here. So I know Google Glass was probably a big failure for Google, but now you kind of see this transcription technology that comes into the Google Glass, where a deaf person who can't hear but can see, if things get transcribed in the glass, you can understand. It's a game changer, right? If you think about it. And the other thing, one more plug, I saw this technology where AR VR glass, where it will tell you if you are a EMT, going on like doing a, what do you even call that thing? A person is dying and you have to give like this, what is it called, that thing? You probably know.
AED,
and then we teach you exactly how to do it. Like look at the equipment, it will say you instructions and tell you, and it will show that green mark to put it on the people's chest. And then it's this amazing tech that in the implication that it can do, right? So think about the box there, and then you put on the glass, and you're like a doctor, because it will tell you what to do. You don't even have to be trained. So I think a lot of implications that might come along, but it'll evolve. So I think looking forward for it. But again, no expert on any of these. I just love the trend in tech.
Yeah. Well, that's exciting and scary, I think. Imagine having someone opening your body. Like, okay, I'm a doctor for today. Let me make an incision right about here.
Yeah.
Horror stories, eh?
Sorry.
It'll be all right if you have enough data sets of real doctors doing it. You'll be fine.
Hey,
right?
Here you go.
One day the machine will do it on its own because of machine learning. So no human needed.
Yeah, it's what is it? Boston Robotics made that robot that can walk, jump, basically react, all of those things. Yeah,
that's right. Boston Robotics. I mean, they've been doing for ages, but something meaningful is coming out these days.
Yeah, it's very cool. Just to roll it back into that VR example, I was actually going to point out the Google Glasses, like you mentioned, Z. It was a little bit before its time, but there are some really cool VR related things coming out, particularly in the health and performance sector. A good example is I think they're called Hakuken Sports. They basically, you guys like laser tag? I know, random.
Yeah.
Yes. Big fan.
Awesome. So basically, that's their whole entire gimmick. They would give you the VR goggles, and you'd be able to virtually play dodgeball, laser tag, all kinds of different things, even hide and seek, freeze tag, whatever, all of those things. So I think it's still a couple of years away from mass adoption. The tech itself has to get better for that to happen, but it'll be interesting in the next 5 years.
That's right.
Imagine the Olympics. Everything's esports. How's that gonna look like? Yeah, interesting. Okay. Any wild imaginations for sports, Jason?
Oh, a lot, but outside, I'm kidding. Yeah, so it's kind of into that VR aspect of it. When I think about like massive innovations and leaps in mankind, I think AI is one of them, which we're seeing right now, and the other to me is VR. Both are very exciting and obviously scary at the same time, as Z pointed out in gruesome detail.
No.
But I just remember as a kid, I thought VR was like the coolest thing ever. You see TV shows about it, living in a virtual world. Everyone thinks it's, the coolest thing ever. And I remember as a kid, there was like a Power Rangers VR helmet I put on. I was like 5 years old. And I don't know why they called it VR. It was literally just looking at pixels on a screen and thinking you were a Power Ranger, I guess. And I think about from then to now, we've made these massive strides. But to second Jay and Tom, I just don't think we're at that space yet where it's really at the level that AI is now becoming. I think there's still more that needs to get done. And once it does get done, I think it's going to be another massive innovation and a change to humankind like AI is right now.
I 100% agree. I think AI definitely, because if you think about AI existed like a decade ago too. The only thing is, these days, early this year, right? I think the accuracy of the generative AI has been so amazingly like close to 100%, probably even 100%. Now it started getting into the hype of people using generative AI to do a lot of things. Scale AI, who used to be like an annotated software, now has gone like a scale to be $7+ billion company, because they've been around for like 10+ years. We didn't really hear about them much, but now with all these chat GPT that kind of went around the globe. And the fun fact, Nepal was like the second countries in the world to use chat GPT. I was super surprised. I didn't know how many people use it, chat GPT in Nepal, and I was looking at the stat the other day. But anyways, I think AI is here to stay. I think I'm bullish on AI. I think we should really, this is like, I studied finance when I had to study software coding, right, back in the days. Now I think I don't want to miss the boat and really invest my time to learn and acquire knowledge on AI. So it will be phenomenally helpful, whatever I do for the next 10 years of my life. So I think definitely something to look for. And then it has some economic values versus like crypto hype, the other in the last couple of years.
Yeah, and I think we're also in a better space. I mean, correct what Jason said. We're not quite there yet, but also we are in a better space when it comes to adapting tech and innovation, especially as we saw pre-pandemic here in Asia. People are a bit more conservative when it comes to innovation, and I think that's something everyone here has also seen at some level. But because of the pandemic, everyone was kind of forced to adapt, move into digital payments, e-wallets, everything in tech, down to working out with your coach through a phone. It's become a thing. All our meetings are now borderless, like this one. And for the longest time, because I was in marketing tech before I built MFL, and before then we had such a hard time bringing the tech to clients and to people, because they always had this, I need to see you face to face for vibe check type thing. Otherwise, I don't know if I can trust you, especially, so we here in the Philippines, we call it like the titas, the aunties, who always say basically that if you can't sit with me over coffee, then I might not be able to trust you. And before the meeting starts, we go on a 45-minute conversation on how's your wife? Oh, your uncle said this and this. So I mean, it's nice to have that personable relationship, but also it's also hard to get things done when most of the conversation is just what's up. So yeah, at least on that end, we are a bit more ready to take it on. Okay,
Yeah.
so I know we can go on with this forever, but maybe one last question for everyone. If you have um, parting words or a piece of advice for founders and investors, what might that be? And yeah, if there's a lesson that you've learned in the years you've been doing business, maybe share that to our audience members. Yep. Who wants to start? Raise your hand.
I think I'll go for this one.
Okay. Wow. Okay, go, Jason.
I know the guy's been sitting in the back is going to lead it off. The guy still has his hair wet, try to cover with a cap. But for me, I think the advice I would have is to innovate, adapt, and adopt. The reason why I say that is I've worked heavy in the private space. I've worked heavy in the public space. Private to me is always more exciting because people are looking to, push the mold. They're looking to make changes. And I think that's what really makes something valuable. When I was working in the more public sector, a lot of these larger companies, you'd be surprised at how behind they are in tech. And I remember seeing that there were companies that in 2020, the 2020s, and they're using tech from like the late 1990s to early 2000s. These are massive Fortune 500 companies.
Yeah.
And I saw the functionality within those organizations, and I compared that to the tech space, which is more startup, younger generation. Some of them aren't as well versed as the public space, but I saw them be more efficient because they were looking to adapt and innovate. And that would be my suggestion to any founder. When new things come up, learn it, understand it, and find ways to integrate that into your business.
Great advice.
Well said. Well said. I'll actually second that. One of the biggest mottos I like to live by is adapt and overcome. And being a founder, as well as working with a lot of different founders in the startup space, you're going to have a great vision. You're going to have a great roadmap, but there's always going to be a lot of bumps, and you're most likely going to take 1 to 50 different types of deviations, right? So always just be ready to change your scope of thinking if it needs to be, overcome the challenges that you're going to face, and learn from it, be better for it. Don't let it bring you down.
That's awesome. All right, I might steal from somebody else. I think, I don't know, Steve Jobs or Paul Graham. Somebody said this, but if you're building something in a startup tech ecosystem, don't build for everybody. Really build it for like a small subset of people, like maybe just solve a really tiny problem. Don't try to change the world. I don't think it's possible. We just have to admit that. Try to solve a very little problems and then see if you can replicate that to many others, right? I think that's where the key is on the founders, where sometimes we get hyped with solving like a massive problem. It's really hard. Solve a small problem and kind of amplify that, and then go towards the stretch of helping a lot more customers who have a similar problem. Understand the market, obviously, right? Don't just try to solve one single problem and it's gonna just stay there forever, so you can't really scale the business. I think that's how I think I would say, because if I have to build something else later, I would probably build it, understand the market, solve for small sets of customers, make them really, really happy, make them your champion, and then deploy it for other masses. I think that would be my advice for any first-time founder.
There you go. I hope that everyone took notes, because there were a lot of nuggets of wisdom throughout this conversation. And thank you again for being here, Tommy and Jason. And of course, Jay, thank you for hosting. As always, I learned a lot from this chit chat. I'm sure our viewers did too. But before we say goodbye, let's take an official photo, shall we?
Yes.
All right. Happy faces. Okay. 1, 2, 3, and smile. Okay. Safety shot. 1, 2, 3, and smile. Okay, there you go. Yay. Thank you so much, Jason and Tommy of Next Era Ventures Advisors.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Best wishes. Thank you.
You guys, thank you so much. Again, that was Mr. Jason Mann and Mr. Tommy Zheng. What an episode. Congratulations again, Jay, for another episode. I'm curious.
Wow.
I mean, from everything, which was the most interesting thing that we talked about today?
Yeah, I think the trend was, and I think a lot of the things kind of we agree on. Don't go with the hype. Don't go with the trend. Just really solve a real problem. I think Tommy and Jason coming from the venture space where they're investing and really investing in founders. I think they agree on those side of fundamentals. Where I come from, founding and building a company, and I think this is where we also think that we shouldn't really kind of go with the hype, but really kind of step back, think how can we implement and really have a clarity on what you're building. I think that's important. So I think that would probably be my takeaway from these calls. But we also want more and more venture advisors because a lot of the founders should probably get advice early on what Jason and Tommy is doing to really help those founders who definitely need this type of advice. Because and also the good thing was Tommy was already a founder before, so having that experience under the belt really helps other founders to see the light at the end of the tunnel when someone who has done it, built it, exited it, and all this support is going to be tremendous for the first time founders when if and then when needed. So
yeah, I couldn't agree more. I especially liked when we talked about what tech actually meant, because right now it's so easy to just say we're innovating, we're doing this, and this, but what does it actually do to people and for
That's
people, right? Are you actually solving a relevant problem to a certain subset of people? Like you said, it doesn't have to be the whole world, but it has to at least do something and make something better at any capacity, right? But I think that's such an eye opener as well. So if you're a founder and you're watching this, I do hope that you also look into your business model and where tech and innovation sits within that company, so that if it's just a nice to have because it's cool, or is it something that will actually help your customers, because at the end of the day, they are your number one stakeholders, right? For everyone else watching this, we are curious what you picked up from this episode. You share it in the comment section below. And of course, as always, if you have questions for Jay, share that in the comment section below. Also, he will be more than happy to answer. But you can also chit chat with him through his Instagram. That's at Tech Talks with Jay. And on LinkedIn, that's Jay Dahal. And don't forget to click like and subscribe. And I think one last is Jay's website is now live. That's jaydahal.com. So you can look through that for resources and more things to learn from. Speaking of, because you made it this far into the episode, Jay has a thank you gift to everyone who watched till the very end. And this is his ebook. So you are going to see a QR code. There you go, popping on your screens. All you have to do is take a screenshot of that or flip out your phones and scan that already. You can download Jay's ebook from there. So if you are in the business or face of raising funds, all Silicon Valley's best kept secrets are in this ebook. So do scan that QR code and download it now. Once again, thank you so much for being here and joining us on this morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you're tuning in from. This has been your moderator, Zara Carbonell.
Thank you. And this is Jay, and you're watching TikTok with Jay. Thank you all for tuning in.
Thank you, guys. See you soon.
Thanks. See you. Bye.